I hope you have enjoyed the previous video session based on the brief information about early Mughals at a glance. Now we are going to the textual reference of this content. During my last two videos, I already have explained about the origin of Mughals and as well as the rule of succession for Mughals. Now we will come to the next part, that is, you can see the family tree or the pictures of early Mughals through these slides. It was starting with Babur, then Humayun, then Akbar, then Jahangir, Shah Jahan, and finally Aurangzeb. All these rulers are termed as early Mughal rulers, and they were very successful. During their reign, Mughal Empire reached up to the highest mark. Now let's start with the textual reference that when the Mughals are in power, they actually authorized through different military campaigns. Babur, the first Mughal emperor, he succeeded to the throne of Fargana in 1494. He was only 12 years old that time. He was forced to leave his ancestral throne due to the invasion of another Mongol group, the Uzbeks. After years of wandering, he seized Kabul in 1504. And finally, in 1526, he defeated the Sultan of Delhi, Ibrahim Lodi. The Battle of Panipat won and captured Delhi and Agra. You can see the picture of the painting, and these are also portraying the victory over Ibrahim Lodi. Here, there are a lot of military campaigns conducted by Mughal rulers during different time. They have adopted different kind of diplomatic rules to maintain relationship with others, as well as where the battle or the conflict was needed, they went for battle. Where the diplomatic moves are needed, there they adopted that process. The relationship between the Mughals and the Ahoms, that was very hostile and very strange. These particular tribal community, they defeated Mughals 17 times. Another threat for the Mughal was Afghan. But the Sheikhs, Mewar and Marwar, then Marathas, they were also having a different kind of relation equation with Mughals. That is not the matter of discuss for today. I am just mentioning that. Specially mentioned over here, Humayun's relationship with Safavid Iran, that was different from Akbar's notion. With the help of this Safavid from Iran, Babur and Humayun came to the power. But Akbar refused to pay attention, same kind of cordial relation with this Safavid. Finally, during the time of Aurangzeb, Deccan, especially Golconda, Bijapur, they were very hostile. So, different kind of relationship, political relationship that created or emerged during the time of Mughal era. Here, specially noted one information, that is gunpowder technology was brought to India for warfare in 14th century. Firearms were used for the first time in regions such as Gujarat, Malwa, Deccan, and was used by Babur in the early 16th century. I also marked that portion. You need to remember it. Next part we will discuss about, you can see The Mughal tradition of succession, I already detailed discussion, already I have done it. That is based on actually two type of succession rule was there. That is one is primogeniture, another one is co-personary. But Mughal and Timurid custom of co-personary inheritance, that was very very important. You can see the map. That map is actually presenting the military campaigns under Akbar and Aurangzeb, the vast area conquered by Mughal emperors. So this map is important, that which parts were under the control of Mughals, that question can be given. You can see a huge from northwest to the eastern region of India as well as Ahmednagar up to this portion, entire area under the control of Mughals. But here Gondwana land, that is a tribal land, you will come to know later on in chapter 6 we will discuss about it. That area was not under the control of Mughal directly. So this map you need to practice. Now I am coming to the Mughal relations with other rulers. This is very interesting and very notable also. This is very interesting and notable also, that Mughal rulers campaigned constantly against rulers who refused to accept their authority. But as the Mughals became powerful, many other rulers also joined with them voluntarily. Example, Rajputs are the good example of this. Many of them married their daughters into Mughal families and received high positions, but many resisted as well. In this resistance, we must refer the Shishodaya Rajput of Mewar, who refused to accept Mughal authority for a long time, but once defeated, however, they were honorably treated by the Mughals, given their lands back as assignment, which is called Vatan, and the assignments are being termed as Vatan Jagir. The careful balance between defeating but not humiliating their opponents enabled the Mughals to extend their influence over many kings and chieftains. That is very interesting. And this policy mainly followed by Akbar. He was the best implicator of this policy, and later on the rest of the rulers just followed his path. Only Aurangzeb did not accept this kind of measures, and that's why during his time lot of problem appeared. In this case, I must mention Aurangzeb insulted Shivaji when he came to accept Mughal authority. But that consequence of this insult was very, very harsh. And finally, till the later Mughal period also, this Maratha community, or the Maratha, they became the constant rival of Mughals. Now, we are going to the most effective and interesting part of Mughal Empire, that is the administrative system. Under this administrative system, Mansabdars and Jagirdars are very important. When the empire expanded, that was needed some efficient officials to deliver all the instruction and rules on behalf of Mughals. So that's why Mughals recruited from small nucleus Turkish noble, from there to Iranis, Indian Muslims, Afghan, Rajput, Marathas and other groups. Those who joined Mughal service were enrolled as Mansabdar. Here we are getting one question, that who were Mansabdars? Those who joined with Mughal service, they were called as Mansabdars. Like the same way the government is having a government employee, the same way Mughals, their servant or their employees are called Mansabdar. The term Mansabdar refers to an individual who holds a mansab, meaning a position or a rank. It is the meaning of the word. It was a grading system. The grading system used by the Mughal to fix 3 points, that is rank, salary and the military responsibility. On the basis of these 3 criteria, the Mansabdars or the rank has been decided. Rank and salary were determined by numerical value called Jat. Here we are getting another question. What is Jat? The higher the Jat, the more the prestigious was the noble's position in the court and larger his salary. Now, in your book, the Jat ranking, what is that? It has clearly mentioned. I also marked nobles with a Jat of 5,000 were ranked higher than those of 1,000. In Akbar's reign, there were 29 Mansabdars with a rank of 5,000 Jat. But Aurangzeb's reign, the number of Mansabdars had increased to 79, but the number of that Jagirdar, that is the land, it has not increased. So there was a huge problem. We will discuss it very next about this problem. But here you need to remember what is the basis of Jat. The next question we are getting, that the Mansabdar's military responsibilities. Under the responsibility of Mansabdars, this is the most important part. The Mansabdar's military responsibilities required him to maintain a specific number of Sewar and or the cavalrymen. The Mansabdar brought his cavalrymen for review, got them registered, their horses branded, and then received money to pay them as salary. So it was very elaborated and very organized system. Mansabdars received their salaries as revenue assignments called Jagir. Now one question we are getting over here, what is Jagir? Who are having Jagir? They are Jagirdars. But all Mansabdars are having Jagir. Whereas the Jagirdars, all Jagirdars are not the Mansabdar. That idea must be clear in your mind. Mansabdars, they are the directly recruited by the rulers. They are the government or the kings. They are actually working from the royal family, for the royal family or for the empire. But the big landowners, they are also termed as Jagirdars. They are not directly part of Mughal administration. They are the sub part. Some way what like Iktas. It is just like Iktas, but unlike Muftis, most Mansabdars did not actually reside or administer their Jagirs. They only had rights to the revenue of their assignment, which was collected for them by their servants, while the Mansabdars themselves served in some other part of the country. Like I am a Mansabdar under Mughal Empire, so I am having my Jagir in West Bengal, but my posting is there in Gujarat. So, and that my Jagir will be looked after by my servants and they will collect the revenue, and that can be given as my salary. It is the most unique feature of Jagirdari system and the Mansabdari system in a combined way. Akbar's reign, these Jagirs were carefully assessed so that their revenues were roughly equal to the salary of the Mansabdar. So there was no problem. But the problem faced during the time of Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb's reign, this was no longer the case, and actual revenue collected was often less than the granted sum. There was also a huge increase in the number of Mansabdars, which means before they receive a Jagir. Why this maximum number of Jagirdar has increased? Because Mansabdar number has increased because during the time of Aurangzeb, he was quite busy in Deccan with warfare, and that's why he will be needed more number of army or the soldiers. That's why he has increased the number of Mansabdar. But that number of Jagirs were not there, and that's why he has used most of the royal lands or the Jagirs in this purpose, and that created a huge and immense pressure on royal treasury. As a result, many Jagirdars tried to extract as much revenue as possible while they had a Jagir. Aurangzeb was unable to control this development in the last year of his reign, and the peasantry therefore suffered tremendously. Obviously, when the Jagirdars, when the Mansabdars are creating pressure to collect more amount of tax, the peasants were not able to pay back it. That was beyond their capacity, and that's why they revolted. And that is the reason during the time of Aurangzeb, lot of peasantry section of different parts of their controlled area, they revolted, and that has actually shown and affected the growth of Mughal Empire, and it has started declining. We will discuss about this point in detail during my next video. What were the reasons behind the decline of Mughal Empire? So today, up to this part, I am discussing, and now I am going to end my session. After this session, I am also giving you the Word file which will be uploaded in the school website. I hope that will help you out to understand and find out the chapter more clearly. Let's hope for the best, and stay tuned with me for next update. Bye.